So race 2 of the weekend here at Spa-Francorchamps for the Fanatec GT2 European Series is about to get underway. A little delayed after dramas in the GB3 race earlier on, and that means that given the restrictions on race time here and a curfew of 6 o'clock, because next week local residents are going to have an awful lot of late nights and racing car noise. This weekend stops at 6. It's a slightly shortened race. We're about 8 minutes or so away from getting the race underway, and therefore it won't quite go to 50 minutes. It's going to be about 45 or nearest offer. With there, number 1, the Brabham on pole position, started by Anders Fjordbach, who shares the car with Kevin Weider. They've already had one win during the course of the season. They won the first of the 2 races at Misano, and they got a third earlier on in the day. The first race won by the KTM of Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rosina. There, lining up on the grid, is number 11, the Stinus Longin started and shared with Nicolas Salins Audi, a car that earlier on in the day took second place, whereas the sister car ultimately had a rather bad result. Even though it did well, it had a late race puncture and then had a pit stop penalty added post-race, so it dropped Bert Longin and Peter Gullink down to 10th place. The grid is a smaller one perhaps than anticipated for Spa, but even so it's a very competitive one. We had a last lap change of lead in the AM category in race 1, Ori Hessid being able to defeat Leonardo Gorini on the last lap, and the pit lane is now closed. The car's ready to do battle then over roughly 45 minutes with mandatory pit stops. The pit window, though, stays in the same place, 20 to 30 minutes. So it's an 82-second pit stop, line to line. Most will do a driver change, but not all. And so they're looking into the KTM. That's Stefan Rosina, one of the 2 drivers that took the win earlier on in the day. And there's a gap on the grid by the look of it, which should be the number 88, Stefan Rattel Audi. Now, Stefan is on the grid, but the car is not. Now, that is a surprise. I'm looking out of the window, in fact, at said gap, and Stefan is looking suitably confused. The LP Racing team are looking confused. Marshals are awaiting the car. Stefan is talking to, as you can just see at the bottom left of the picture, the series officials and saying, "Where's my car then?" And it might be that it's got stuck in the pit lane. Pit lane is closed, but either it's got a problem on the track or it has been trapped in the pit lane. So Stefan is still there waiting and watching, but I can't see. Can I peer out of the window? Oh, there's a yellow flag waving that suggests the car might be on its way. Yes, there it is. It's late on parade, but it has arrived now. So come on, come on, come on. So the marshals park here. So it's rather relieved, Stefan Rattel, that can now leave the grid, because he will get a race. He will get to drive the second stint in the number 88 Audi. So the grid is complete, and that means we're ready to go. It is a very, very hot afternoon here. It's been a most un-Spa-like weekend with very, very high temperatures, not a drop of rain, and so the heat wave continues over Belgium, and for the drivers then, the first stint about to get underway. So there the grid is formed, and as the final engineers make their way to the pit lane, they'll be called upon for the pit window, possibly to assist driver changes, but mainly to time the pit stop to make sure that the car is not released too soon so as to incur any sort of penalty. So the BMW leading car in a moment will accelerate away, and as the clock ticks on down, 50 minutes are there, but we are unlikely to get all 50 in. It's going to be somewhere between 45 and 50 minutes, really, because the cars have to be in and silence must reign by 6 p.m. So very rapidly the race turned around by the officials. The RACB organising activity on track with British GT along with French GT, French touring cars, and the GB3 Championship along with GT2. So the cars are released and they want to go racing as soon as possible. This is therefore likely to be a rare, fairly swift formation lap as the cars now come down through Eau Rouge. They make the climb up Radion. Anders Fjordbach's Brabham starts on pole position. Stinus Longin in the Audi with him at the front of the grid. On the second row, there's going to be Stefan Rosina's KTM and Michael Verger's one to watch in the high-class racing Audi. Row 3 is where you will find the Eli Earhart Audi that he shares with Michael Doppelmayr, and Bert Langevin goes first in number 81, ahead of Luca Piri and then Henri Hassan on the 4th row of the grid. Row 5 is where you've got Alessandro Baccani and Leonardo Guarini, both in Porsches, one from Heavy Motors, one from LP Racing, with Seti Samini and Hubert Trunkenpolt starting on the back row of the grid. So that's the order as the cars now wriggle their way up towards Les Cons. It's been a talking point over the weekend, but Spa, of course, very different these days, not in terms of the track, but the periphery to it, with lots of gravel traps now in play for motorbike racing that's made a return to Spa. There's even an extra little bit of road down at Speaker's Corner, turn 9, for purely motorbikes, but those gravel traps to catch fallen riders mean that you've got much less width of road to play with. If you go over the curb, you're into the gravel, that brings it onto the road and you risk punctures, but also if you put a wheel into it yourself, you're going to lose momentum. And it has meant that we've had fewer track limit dramas, but in a sense, those that we have had have all shifted to one or two key areas, Radillon and down at Blanchimont. So there, in the former Works colours, number 911, Leonardo Guarini making his way out of Bruxelles. He was very unlucky, in a sense, to lose the AM win on the last lap of race 1. Henri Hassan finally pressured him into a mistake and was able to nip through on the inside and take the place. Leonardo Guarini will be very, very determined indeed to put one over the Audi driver. Now, there are pit stop penalties as well. If you're in the top 3, you carry time into the next race. So it means that the pole car of Anders Fjordbach has 5 seconds and Stinus Langevin alongside has 7. Stefan Rossina starting 3rd as the race 1 winner has 10, and then you've got the AMS where 10 seconds go to Henri Hassan, 7 to Leonardo Guarini and 5 to Elia Earhart and Michael Doppelmayr. And it's more of a penalty for Doppelmayr in a sense because he's not as quick as Elia Earhart, but was very pleased with his podium result earlier on in the day. So out of the Piff Path they turn. We're at 17:09 local time, and we've got to be sort of done by 17:55. So that's the target, really. The checkered flag will be waved as close to that as the leader is. So Peter Daly, the race director, with his team in race control, keeping an eye on this as the cars now come up towards Cours Paul Frère. And in a moment or two, they will start to get themselves into that 2x2 formation, ready for the start then, as up towards the left-hander of Blanchimont they come. The pit window, as I think I mentioned, doesn't move. That stays at that 20 to 30 minute mark. 82 seconds remains the pit stop time line to line, but the slightly moving target is that last lap of the race in a sense. Right, we're about to go racing then, as out of Blanchimont they weave. They're all on Pirelli tyres. They've got some warmth into them. It's still a very, very hot evening to round out the first weekend of action at Spa, because back on Tuesday the track is live for the bronze test for the 24 hours of Spa. There's the parade on Wednesday from here into town and back. Then on Thursday the track is very, very busy all the way through Thursday, Friday and Saturday into the 24 hours itself. And so just before the track catches its breath, and the officials do likewise, GT2s are about to be unleashed as down they come into the chicane then. The leading car lights are flashing, ready to peel off into the pit lane. And when it does so, then we will get this second race of the weekend for the GT2 European Series underway, backed by Fanatec, big sponsors, big supporters of real world as well as esports GT racing. And as Fjordbach then ready to go toe-to-toe with Stinus Langevin on the front of the grid. Up to the line they come. Safety car as it is peels into the pit lane. We are about to get the lights flick to green, and we go racing with Fjordbach making a good start then in the Brabham as they howl their way down towards La Source. But he's actually out-dragged ever so slightly by Langevin on the outside and also by Stefan Rossina on the inside line in the orange KTM. Fjordbach gives him racing room, just comes around the corner ahead of him, but then the KTM forces him out wide. Fjordbach through the gravel, loses place after place after place, and he tumbles down the order. Fjordbach back onto the road, but Stefan Rossina leads the way as they come downhill for the first time, with Elia Earhart up into 2nd place. That was a good getaway from the 3rd row, gaining advantage, of course, as other people were in strife, but as they accelerate up Radillon for the first time. Now, the fascination is going to be that the pace of the Brabham to try to get back into the mix will be well worth watching, because now Elia Earhart goes to the inside line. Earhart goes through. Does he against Langevin? Side by side they run. Langevin off the road and back on again. So Elia Earhart goes up into 2nd place. Michael Vergers is there in 4th, also looking for a way by Bert Langevin. He's 5th as the Audis, like this long train of them, come out of Les Cons for the first time. Down to Bruxelles. Race leader, Stefan Rossina, looking for 2 out of 2 here in the KTM. He's got to try and gap the rest by 10 seconds to preserve that through the pit window. race leaders drop downhill then into that left of turn 9, Speaker's Corner, and in the sunshine down towards the double gauche, the left-hander at Paul. Vergers goes out wide though there, number 5, and rattles it over the curb, and that's going to bring now Henri Hassad, I think, into the mix as well, and so also Bert Langin. So yes, it's Bert Langin on his tail. So those 4 Audis getting themselves together. Langin on the tail of Vergers, but all the while Stefan Rosina is trying to break away. The Slovakian in the KTM leads the race as they come now down towards campus for the first time. Langin tries to get up the inside of Vergers there in the car that he shares with Aurelius Rustica, the Lithuanian driver, but then up towards the completion of lap 1, and Rosina doing what his co-driver Filip Sladecka did in the earlier race, and that is to just build the lead early. They head now into that fast left through Blanchimont. Be careful not to go too wide up onto the green bit, because that incurs you a penalty midway around the corner, and then down to the chicane to end the lap. And it is the KTM then that scuttles its way into the braking zone. Go right, go left, go up towards the timing line any moment now. And it is then Stefan Rosina who will lead at the end of the opening lap, comes through from 3rd on the grid. So even though he didn't out-qualify the Audis, he's certainly outdriven them on the first lap, and he's got a monster gap as he comes through then now. Down towards La Source. There in second place is Eli Earhart. Now, Earhart for the race lead could be one to keep an eye on here. He's a very, very quick driver, is Eli Earhart. He's raced in the German GT Championship, but perhaps gets a little bit overshadowed in a sense because Michael Doppelmayr, that bit slower, doesn't have the same pace. But when he's behind the wheel, Earhart, who has been a polo star in Germany and in China, he's raced in Carrera Cup, he's raced in the Nürburgring Long Distance Series. Very accomplished GT peddler is Eli Earhart, one to watch, and there he is closing on the leader. The number 1 Brabham of Anders Fjordbach you just saw go through shot at the end of the first lap, full of travails for him. He's 9th, so Fjordbach trying to get back into the mix then, as there, look, you've got Bert Langin on the attack against Michael Vergers, heading up now into Les Combes once more. Turn through the right and the left and then right again, but you can't run wide up the curb anymore because the gravel is there to catch you out. Over the brow then, now down towards Bruxelles, nose to tail these two run, and this is for 4th and 5th places. Michael Vergers and Aurelius Rustica, who have come oh so close to race wins. They've been on the top step of the podium, only to have the result changed around them. But this weekend, that car hasn't really looked as competitive as anticipated. It's been very much the Rosina and Sladecka KTM that has ruled the roost. There, the Brabham of Anders Fjordbach crawls all over the back of Henri Hassad's Audi. Fjordbach, the man from pole position here, trying to get himself back into the mix as the cars swing out of Paul. Vergers goes through, still being able to fend off Langin. Go right, go left, out of the piff-paff. But Stefan Rosina at the end of the opening lap was leading by 1.8 seconds. Earhart, though, in second place, is quicker in sectors this time around. Now there is Leonardo Guarini's Porsche, and Guarini in turn has got number 1 right on his tail, which is Anders Fjordbach in the Brabham. So this is the AM versus Pro-Am battle, and it is a very pro driver in that Brabham. But Anders Fjordbach, of course, having lost time through being run out wide at the first corner. Here he goes to make his move down towards the chicane. Fjordbach on the outside line, breaks late and easily goes through. And in fairness to Guarini, that's not his fight, really. He is an AM-class driver against a Pro-Am class car. What's the point? So through comes Fjordbach over the timing line. He's now up into 7th place, and this is what happened at the first corner then. He's in the middle of the leading 3, turns in ahead. Rosina goes to the inside line, bit of hip and shoulder that forces the Brabham out wide, but now it's not run off tarmac or grass, it is gravel. So there he is being forced out wide, and all the momentum has gone. He loses place after place after place after place. So now Anders Fjordbach trying to get himself back into contention. We're getting track limit warnings though for, first of all, Sedi Samini's KTM down in 11th place, and also for Bert Langin, who is in 5th. It's not Bert's day, having picked up a penalty post-race in race 1. And there he is now, hustling on in pursuit of then Michael Vergers. So down through Les Combes goes Luca Piri, number 88 Audi. That's the car that he shares with Stéphane Rattel, and Stéphane will take over a car potentially in 9th place. They're chasing after, that's a Pro-Am entry by the way, they're chasing after Henri Hassad. Now, Henri is only 3rd in AM, but he was a little bit low down the order earlier on, and he was then able to come good late race. Now the gap has come down from 1 second to much less, because a 10th was pulled back in the first sector by Eli Earhart. He's been chipping away for the last couple of laps anyway, but now, as you can see, he's got the gap down to length rather than the 1 second that it was at the start of the lap. So Eli Earhart charges on in pursuit of the leading car. He's got to serve an extra 5 seconds in the pits, whereas there are 10 to go the way of race leader Rossina. But then also you factor in the pace of Michael Doppelmayr, who will do the second stint, and he's the AM in the Pro-Am car relative to the pace of Earhart, who should be able to get the lead long before we need to worry about the pit window. So Stefan Rossina accelerates then up towards Blanchimont. They're taking with them, of course, Stinus Langin there as well, who is running now in 3rd place. Stefan Rossina, who was 3rd well over a decade ago in Porsche Super Cup. He's raced in various GT-related championships over the years. An experienced driver. Good to have him back in mainstream international GT competition, fending off Earhart, who in turn has got Stinus Langin right up behind him as they come over the stripe once more. That puts 3 laps in the book now. The earlier race got 20 laps in. Down they come into La Source, and that time around Earhart thinks about making a move. Certainly just jinks around in the mirrors of Stefan Rossina, tries to distract him. Anders Fjordbach has done the fastest lap of the race in the Brabham, which is perhaps no real surprise because he did that in race 1 as well. So the race leaders make the run now up through Raidillon. And this the run towards Les Combes, where if he's close enough, Eli Earhart might just be able to dive out and make a pass. In the background there, you've got Stinus Langin thinking about doing the same thing to Earhart, who now does have a look up the inside, but it wasn't really a serious bid, I don't think, that. Trying, if anything, just to unsettle Rossina, force an error out of him. The problem that Earhart has got is that he's trying to attack for the race lead, but make sure that he defends that 2nd place from a really towy Stinus Langin, who pulls out and again has a look at the inside into Bruxelles. The young Belgian driver then swings through that right-hander. Turn right and then turn a bit sharper. Downhill they drop. So, as I said before the race started, it might be a modest grid, but there's no drama in terms of the quality of the racing, and this has always been the hallmark of GT2. It just needs that extra handful of cars to come to commit, and then the ball would really start rolling, because you've got experienced drivers, you've got quick drivers, you've got people that know how to race. Look at this for the lead now. Eli Earhart tries to go to the inside line into Piff Paff, but Stefan Rossina able to fend him off. You don't finish 3rd in Porsche Super Cup if you're no good, so Rossina knows exactly where to position that car to keep Earhart at bay, and Stinus Langin is not falling away from them, is he, in that 3rd place? He's staying with the top 2, possibly because they're tripping over themselves and delaying each other, but he's also committed to getting back ahead of Eli Earhart. In 4th place is Michael Vergers, in 5th is Bert Langin, and 6th is Anders Fjordbach in the Brabham, who is doing fastest lap after fastest lap as the cars now howl their way up into the left of Blanchimont once more. Oh so distinctive engine note of the Audis, of which there are plenty. And out wide there was Rossina. He gathers it all up again and comes down towards the chicane. They brake and they are about to turn right and then left up towards the completion of the lap. Back onto the power. So by the end of the lap, Rossina's 6/10 advantage pretty much plateaus, because Earhart is 0.652 of a second behind him again. He can't quite get close enough to make that move. I just wonder about Vergers in 4th place, because he is now lapping quicker than the 3 ahead of him. He is taking Langin with him, and look who Langin's got for company there, number 1, Anders Fjordbach. So despite the fact that Fjordbach was in the gravel there, forced out wide on lap 1, he is now only 6 seconds away from the race lead and has just done another absolute best lap of the race, Anders Fjordbach. So the Danish driver plunges downhill again. That car had a wheel part company with it at the start of the weekend, but now for the race lead. Earhart makes a move one side, to the other side goes Stinus Langin. The Audis are almost overlapping as they come up towards Les Combes, and Stinus Langin on the outside line tries to make the move, but nope, does not work. Almost taps the tail of Earhart to say, come on, hurry up, I'm a bit quicker. But what that's also now done is give Stefan Rossina a much, much bigger advantage as they come out of Les Combes and down towards Bruxelles. 10 minutes done then as the cars now head to that right-hander. The Vergers and Bert Langin battle behind also inches up a little bit closer. Downhill they come. So as they head downhill, these cars round about 5 seconds a lap slower than the really fastest British GT3 cars that are here this weekend. So they're not a million miles away. They're certainly quicker than GT4, and they are meant to be a challenge for the AMs, but also to reward them. So they do have aero, but not vast amounts, so that they become overly daunting. Cars move around a little bit, and those that have raced in this championship, very, very keen on it indeed. And the KTM, which is perhaps the low-cost way of coming into the championship, a very competitive car, but it's good that you've got the likes of the Brabham on the grid, plenty of Audis, Porsche tempted in. We've had Lamborghini on occasions as well. We've had the odd Ferrari that's dipped in and out, not really to the regulations, but just to sort of make Ferrari think about it. There was a concept, if you like, invitation class Mercedes AMG on the grid at the Red Bull Ring. So lots of the manufacturers are having a look and a sniff and a feel about this market, just like they eventually did for GT4. And once the manufacturers got involved and built cars, their GT4 absolutely exploded, and I think this will do the same. Audi and Porsche really the first two to commit to it. As very wide there goes Vergas around the outside of Longchamp. Look, goes Fjord back in the background, and he goes fifth then coming out of the chicane. So the Brabham goes through, gains a place. Is that another fastest lap? Not that time around, it is not nose. The three leaders, Concertina into turn one. There's Vergas fourth. Fifth still is Fjordbach. Rounds the hairpin, gets onto the loud pedal, plunges down the hill once more, and sixth behind him now, then having lost one place, is Bert Longchamp. 32 minutes are on the clock, and it's 17:23 local time. So the aim is to try to squeeze in 50 minutes if possible, up to the Les Combes sequence then. Again, Stinus Longchamp challenges Eli Earhart. And as they come out of Les Combes, they're now towards the Bruxelles double apex right-hander. Again, this is the part of the circuit where with the Audis playing, so Rossina is able just to extend that margin a little bit more. Earhart knowing that he needs to really press on here, because when Michael Doppelmayr gets into the car, his pace may not be able to match that of Nicolas Salins, who will get into the car that's right there behind at the moment. Out of Bruxelles they come, downhill then. From Pouant to Piff Paff, and again Longchamp comes out to have a go at Earhart, who darts across the front of him and defends there. Stinus Longchamp, who's raced in the Euro NASCAR series and the Belgian BMW M235i Challenge. He's raced in the TCR series. He was a Euro NASCAR champion, in fact, so he's an accomplished driver coming into GT racing and having a go in GT2. Whether that's as a stepping stone to something else remains to be seen, but whereas it's perhaps catering in many cases for the AMs, here you've got Nicolas Salins and Stinus Longchamp as two young guns thinking about their racing futures and learning about GT racing in this environment. Now, what's going on in AM at the moment? Well, the leading AM is Eli Earhart, that car that he shares with Michael Doppelmayr. So Eli Earhart's pace on his own, very, very good, but the car runs in the AM class largely because Michael Doppelmayr counters the speed of Eli Earhart. Good battle going on here. Look, as to the outside line, there tries to go Luca Piri's Audi as they come through Blanchimont. Down to the chicane this time, brake hard, turn right, turn left. Leonardo Guarini goes through. He is currently second of the AMs, and then you've got Alessandro Baccani in third in the Ebi Motors Porsche. These are the three race leaders then, who again, as they come past the endurance pits and plunge downhill, are in the same order of Rossina from Earhart from Longchamp. Now, Anders Fjordbach in the Brabham, still fifth, still 6 seconds adrift of the lead. You might just get a glimpse of him in a moment behind the timing tower coming into view. There he was. He has now picked up a driving standards flag for track limit abuses. Earhart, number 18 in the red and black Audi, still defending from Longchamp, who again tries the outside line and gets run out wide and finds all of the curve in front of him. Still can't find a way through. Turn right then now, drop down the hill, heading towards Bruxelles. This is about the first opportunity, really, since the bottom of Eau Rouge, where the road actually starts to drop again. Climb all the way up Radillon, keeps on going, even Les Combes is uphill, and then finally you get over the brow and it's downhill. To Pouant they come then, into that left. Rossina cannot get away, but equally, he's not making mistakes, he's keeping them behind him. Earhart tries to attack, tries to defend, because constantly he's got that omnipresent Audi of Stinus Longchamp right there, looking for a way by. They come now in a pit path through the right and the left, where that gap between them is virtually nothing at all for the race lead again. They accelerate their way down towards campus. In a sense, the only thing that's, or one of the things at least, that is saving the race leader is the battle for second place. Whereas, if Longchamp just sat there, let Earhart do the hard work, I think he would prise open the door and be able to go through. And Vergers in fourth place is getting closer and closer all the time as well. Not by massive increments, but he's edging closer and closer. But all of that hard work is going to be changed at the pit window when Aurelius Rustica gets in, and then you get into that situation of looking at the pace of the second drivers, whereas the lead KTMs, Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rosina, very evenly matched indeed. So I think that car is going to be on for a double, even allowing for its 10-second extra time served in the pits. Leaders go through. So we've got 2 minutes and 55 seconds before the window opens, which is more than a lap for the leaders. But some of the back markers, I think, might be able to come in at the end of this lap and serve the stop. So through they turn, on now to lap number 8. Over the timing line there goes Henri Hassi in the AM class Audi, under attack from Luca Piri. And Henri Hassan's Audi, run by LP Racing, and there is LP behind him looking for a way by. Hassan is sideways, then up the curb coming out of La Source. See how much gravel has been brought back onto the circuit now. Lap after lap, you've got to drive through that. Inevitably, that's going to affect the tyres. Bert Longchamp is on his track limit final warning at turn 17 now. So Bert Longchamp is under investigation for yet further infringements. It's being looked at by race control. Now, not only is Vergers closing onto the tail of Stinus Longchamp, but so is Anders Fjordbach closing onto the back of him. Fjordbach is lapping quicker than Vergers, who is lapping quicker than the three ahead. So still that leading five concertinaing. And Rosina will be quite glad, I think, to get to the pit window and hand over that car, because he's had to soak up pressure all the way through. 10 seconds that car will have to serve. Vergers doesn't serve any in fourth place, so in theory that should gain the race lead, especially as Michael now is part of that leading group. So it's a 4-car train for the race lead, nearly 5, with Anders Fjordbach not that far behind either. Through they turn once again now, heading up towards Blanchimont. And here, the race lead situation, they're not going to be able to pit this time. They're going to miss that by 40 seconds or so. But it's now 5 in a line. Look, because Fjordbach has caught up to Vergers, who has caught up to Longchamp, who's right there on the tail of a sliding Earhart. But the KTM, quick out of the chicane, able just to pull away by a couple of lengths. So that gap just extends slightly. In the background in 6th place is Bert Longchamp, who is not really staying with them in this race, is he? That gap is widening once again. So downhill they plunge. This is now lap number 9 for the race leaders. And all of a sudden, things have opened up a little bit. Rosina has certainly got away from Earhart by over a second. So having had it at tenths, fractions, it is now 1.3. The pit window is open. And it is Rosina from Earhart from Longchamp Jr., then Vergers, then Fjordbach. And is anybody bold enough to come in right at the start of it? I don't think anybody actually had the option, in fairness. I think most had crossed the line, if not all had crossed the line before the window opened. But this time around, it could be a different story. However, in many of the cars, you've got your quicker driver in, but also the second driver is the bill payer. So you need to look after him and give him a certain amount of time behind the wheel, that's for certain. Leaders come through then, out of Bruxelles, down. They come to Speaker's Corner, with Fjordbach having got past Vergers now, up into 4th place. Kevin Weider will take over that car. Regular in sports prototype racing. He's driven in the Asian Le Mans Series as Kevin Weider, and a very happy podium finisher early on. Look at the pace of the Brabham, though, now. Right up all of a sudden with the Audis, and a new race leader is Elia Earhart. So having been 1.3 seconds back, he's caught and passed Rossina there, about to make his move for third place. He's Fjordback. Out of the piff path they come, and finally, having gone through, Earhart, look, is away like a scalded cat. He builds that lead as to the outside, then the inside goes Fjordback. This is the third place, remember. Little puff of smoke maybe from the KTM, and I thought I heard somebody rattling off into the gravel in the background there. But the leaders come through. So now Earhart is getting away, and am I getting a bit worried about that KTM for nothing? It did look like there was a puff of smoke at the Courant Paul Frere. Certainly Rossina has lost pace now relative to Eli Earhart. Look at the gap that he's pulled in half a lap. He's gone absolutely streaking ahead as they come now down towards the chicane. Earhart, in theory, ought to stay out for as long as he can. And look, Rossina slows right down. He has got a problem. Tries to get to the pit lane, but clearly all is not well with that car. If he wanted to come in that time, he got himself on the wrong line, but he slowed, then gets going. Now, that might have been the only way that he could have got to the pit lane, but he certainly lost track position, and he was losing pace anyway. So down the pit road comes Stefan Rossina. Let's see whether or not it was purely that he needed the track space to get across and pit, or whether there's something more sinister there. Earhart now leads by 2 seconds. There is the KTM coming down the pit road. There in the background, Anders Fjordback's Brabham comes up through Radion. And so he's now third as also to the pit lane, being waved in by the fans on the rooftop of the terrace. You've got then the Horny Hasid Audi as well out of that AM fight. So right now, Earhart leads. Their second, Stinus Longchamp. Their third is Fjordback. Michael Berger's fourth and has dropped away. Driver change goes on between Sladecka and Rossina in the KTM. That car 82 seconds plus the regulation pit stop time of an extra 10 for winning race 1. More dirt kicked up there because that was the Michael Berger's Audi running a little bit wide, kicking up the soil. And there going through as well is the high-class Audi at Paul, where Vergas is trying to fight back against Fjordback, having lost that place to him. But Eli Earhart, as we saw in Imola, very, very quick indeed, but that car with Michael Doppelmayr behind the wheel, I rather fear, ain't going to be able to replicate this pace. Second, third and fourth come through together. Vergas still looking good to get the lead after the pit stops, given that those around him have got penalties, but then it's all down to Aurelius Rustica to try to hang on to that. Right, now out of the pit lane is the now Filip Sladecka KTM. So fingers crossed it hasn't got a problem. It had, as I say, lost pace and the place on that in-lap, then it lost even more when it had to stop in order to come across into the pits. But I would have thought that had that been the plan for Rossina to pit that lap, he'd have put himself on the line for the pit lane anyway. But maybe it was just a racing drama as he tried to defend and put himself on the wrong part of the racetrack. There is Earhart, who's going to do another lap. Over the timing line they now come. And Stinus Longchamp under attack from Anders Fjordback, who tries the outside line. That's brave, given what happened to him earlier on. He gets run out wide again there. Michael Vergas getting closer and closer all the while as well as they plunge down the hill once again. We're now on lap number 11 as the leaders make the run down to Eau Rouge. Flick left, flick right, climb the hill again. 25 minutes on the clock. Another one for the pit lane. In comes Bert Longchamp to give way to Peter Gulinks. The far less experienced Dutch racer Peter Gulinks is here up towards Les Camps. New second place car then. Anders Fjordback's got ahead of Stinus Longchamp. That brings Michael Vergas back into the mix as well. So Fjordback ready to hand over to Kevin Weider. Still chases Eli Earhart, looking for the race lead before he gets to the pit stops, but I don't think it's going to happen for him. We'll see. That's Leonardo Guarini serving his AM stop. And on top of the regulation time, he's got another 7 seconds that he needs to sit there for. Downhill they come once more. Vergas out wide. And there is the tyre pressures being checked for Peter Gulinks. Audi number 81 ready to fire up and leave the pit lane in the very patriotic Belgian colours. The Longchamp Gulinks car is the one with the yellow front. The red front is the one for Nicolas Salins and Stinus Longchamp. And Peter Gulinks has a problem. Is he not connected properly? Is the intercom not in? Is there something that's a quick fix from the mechanics? Yes, there is. Ignition is on, the wiper flicks to say we're good to go, and down the pit road, possibly with a bit of time wasted there, goes Peter Gulinks. 24 minutes and counting of the race to go then. Fjordbach still pressing on in the Brabham. And if the race is going to be forced to end early, and therefore the AMs get slightly less time behind the wheel, it's up to the pros in this first stint to get as much out of it as they can to try to establish the race position for the AM in the second stint. Out of the chicane with the gap coming down, Eli Earhart fending off Anders Fjordbach into the pit lane. Now comes Stinus Langevin, so one of the PK Audis done and dusted. Time to bring in the other one. There's the board, ready to receive the Langevin Junior Audi, to which Nicolas Sailens will jump in. Part of another big Belgian racing family. His cousin David Sailens got to Formula 3000 many years ago and then into sports car racing. But what about the car that pitted early? Filip Sladecka then behind the wheel of it. This is his first proper flying lap, so we'll see what a lap time is going to be at the end of this in terms of pure pace relative to those that he's fighting against. Stinus Langevin ready to send out the car that he has brought into the pit lane after a good first stint, keeping in that leading mix. Sladecka comes then now out of campus into Cours Paul Frère. Tyre pressures checked, maybe adjusted on Sailens' Audi, and when the mechanic is happy that they've got to the allotted time, he will move the board, the car will drive down the pit lane, and it will blast back into the race. It does so now. So Stinus Langevin down the pit lane. This is the car that they need to stay ahead of. This is the car that thus far is the best place of the very limited number of leading cars that have pitted. It comes out of the chicane now, but it's a long drive down the pit lane for Sailens at 50 kilometers an hour, whereas at proper race pace here, the KTM, I would think, is going to be just about behind. Yes, it will be coming out of the La Source hairpin, because don't forget that Audi has been 3 seconds less in the pit lane. 7-second extra stop as against 10. So Nicolas Sailens leads. There's the KTM in second place. That's more than 3 seconds, actually. So it was a better pit stop, seemingly. But bear in mind as well that KTM had already had to stop on track and then dive into the pit lane. So another second or two may be wasted just before the car served its mandatory stop. So 21 minutes of the race still to go. Into the pit lane comes the top two now. Eli Earhart to give way to Michael Doppelmayr, and Anders Fjordbach is in as well to hand over the Brabham to Kevin Wieder. And if Fergus is in this time, yes, he is in the background, he will give way to Aurelius Rustica, and that's the car that ought to come out in the lead, I would have thought now, certainly out of these three. But where Rustica is going to be relative to the cars of Sladecka and of Gulinks, we'll have to wait and find out, as there the boards are ready for Luca Piri to come in to hand over to Stefan Rattel, and as Fjordbach gives way to Kevin Wieder. Interesting how some of the drivers help the co-driver, others just get out and walk away and leave it to the team to sort out. Wheels tightened there on the high-class racing Audi for Aurelius Rustica. So the Lithuanian, the electrical appliances magnate, strapped into the car. And as the team make sure that all is good, clock ticks on down and out on track. So number 11 Audi there of Nicolas Sailens comes through. That has been able to stay ahead of Peter Gulinks in the sister car. And there the rest queue up, ready to leave the pit lane. Away blasts Aurelius Rustica, and as predicted, that should now put him ahead of just about everybody else that was stuck in the pit lane. But does he get out ahead here of Sailens, who goes a little bit deep into the chicane, scrabbles through the first part, recovers to find more or less a racing line for the second. And now over the timing line he comes. There, Rustica is on track. He's jumped ahead of Doppelmayr. So Aurelius Rustica should now be the race leader. So it is Audi number 5 ahead of Audi number 18. Then the Brabham, Kevin Weider at the wheel of it, number 1 in 3rd place. So Nicolas Saylands down in 4th and the KTM down in 5th place, I would offer you as the order as the cars climb the hill. Kevin Weider is about to pounce on Michael Doppelmayr. He should be able to get through there without too much fuss, I should have thought. So the cars pound up towards Le Camp. Weider makes his move to the inside line, lines up Doppelmayr's Audi, easy peasy, through on the inside line, job done. But Doppelmayr, bear in mind, is in the AM class, whereas the Brabham is in Pro-Am. So again, it's not really Michael Doppelmayr's fight. He doesn't need to get himself embroiled in that battle. Over the brow they come down to Bruxelles now. So the race lead gap we'll have a proper idea of at the end of this 13th tour. The order, Aurelius Rustica then ahead of Kevin Weider, ahead of Michael Doppelmayr, and then it's Stinus Langevin 4th, and then 5th, Filip Sladecka there in the background. So Rustica trying to get away from Weider. New cars for both of them for this year. Kevin Weider new to the Brabham, Aurelius Rustica forsaking Porsche for Audi this year. Out of the piff-paff they come, down once more towards campus, past the college, and little mistake by Rustica there. It's only his outlap, don't forget, but he was a little bit too late on the brakes and to turn in, therefore, for the campus right-hander. That has delayed him, it's impeded the run slightly. It means that there the Brabham is even closer, so Kevin Weider looking as though this might be a second win of the season, even though that car was delayed at the start. It's been a really, really good outlap for him. Blast through Blanchimont, tighter line, easily through on the inside line. Made that look like Rustica was standing still. So Kevin Weider really committed to this, and through he has gone. So for outright lead, Kevin Weider goes ahead of Rustica, and then as they come up towards the line, 3rd should be Doppelmayr, unless he's lost a place to Langevin on this lap. But there's the leader, number 1 goes through. So Kevin Weider not only leads, but he's going to be able to pull away from Rustica now. In 2nd place is the Audi. 3rd look, number 11 there, Nicolas Saylands, and the change imminent for 4th as Sladecka gets ahead of Doppelmayr. So Michael Doppelmayr losing places, but significantly still leads the AM class after Eli Earhart's hard work in the opening stint. Now, the next of the AMs is Gianluca Giorgi, Porsche number 7. His last lap was a 2:29. Doppelmayr's was a 4 minutes, but admittedly that was out of the pit. So we don't really yet get a representative example of pace for those two. So Kevin Weider and Aurelius Rustica's outlaps around the 3:55 mark for Weider, 3:51 for Rustica, 3:54 when Filip Sladecka left the pit lane, but because he had to serve an extra 10 seconds, he's still down in 4th place. Next target is Nicolas Saylands once more. There he is, coming out of Bruxelles. Now Doppelmayr versus Giorgi we need to be looking at in due course for the AM lead. And we are maybe about 10 minutes away from the cut-off point for the curfew here. So there's, relatively speaking, not that much time in which some of those lower down can gain ground. Now, out of Pouhon comes Filip Sladecka. Aurelius Rustica under attack, though, because there Nicolas Saylands tries to line up for a move on the inside at Piff-Paff. Was close, but not quite close enough to really have a go at that. Will be this time, though, coming down towards campus, will he? Because there on the outside line is the Audi, the very Belgian-hued car, which goes wide in, tight out, the undercut there. The door opens and Nicolas Saylands goes through, moves himself up on the inside of Aurelius Rustica, and now Filip Sladecka is coming back at the pair of them, isn't he, in the KTM? Round the outside of Rustica goes the Slovakian. Next target then will be Nicolas Saylands. Down they turn once more into the chicane. Sladecka goes to the outside line, and slightest of contacts between them as Langevin tried to go for the line, runs him out wide. I said Langevin, it is Saylands. That forces the KTM off the road, and back onto the track ahead goes Filip Sladecka. Now, does he give the place back? He kind of got forced off the racetrack there, but he was off and gained an advantage, so he doesn't force the issue and stay ahead. I think he's going to let the Audi go through. He does, and now ideally get the undercut coming out of the corner and Pounce going down the hill. So good driving by Sladecka, thinking ahead. Yeah, and he's done exactly that. Look, he's gone wide in, tight out, makes his move back, and this time he is legitimately in second place and can set off in pursuit of the Brabham. So Sladecka 5.2 seconds adrift at the start of the lap. More battles lower down. Stefan Rattel there just ahead as they come into La Source of Peter Gullings, and then Henri Hassan behind them. So this is for 8th, 9th and 10th places. Hassan only 4th in class here, having a rather quieter race than he did in the first one, where he won on the last lap in the class. Downhill goes then Stefan Rattel, currently running in 5th in Pro-Am. So there's the LP Racing Audi. Luca Piri having handed over to Stefan Rattel. The sister car of Henri Hassan is right there behind Stefan, but Henri runs as an AM, and behind the pair of them is Peter Gullings, who's falling away a little bit now. Now there, look, is Sladecka trying to take Salens with him. In the first sector, he was 1.3 seconds quicker than Kevin Weider. So Philip Sladecka should be able to bring this gap down. Whether he can bring it down enough in time is the question. There through is the KTM. In the second sector, he's pulled back another 1.5 seconds or so. So this is looking good for the KTM, if he's got the available time left in the race to really make a move. And he's taking with him now Nicolas Salens. That gap coming down a little bit as well. The Audi trying to stay with the KTM as they come out of the chicane. So over the timing line once more they come. Into La Source they come now, so we've got 11.5 minutes on the clock, but we've got to be done and dusted by 6, and the checkered flag, we are told on the bulletin that's gone to the teams, will be waved as close to 17:55 as possible, which probably gives you maybe this lap and one more, given that they're 2.5 minutes or just under at the moment. So on to the Kemmel Straight. Here's the lead battle, and it's come right down, as I'd said it was doing. 1.9 seconds last time, and Philip Sladecka, very experienced GT racer, closing on Kevin Weider all the time as he comes into Les Combes now. In third place, it's Salens. Rustica is 4th. Michael Doppelmayr is 5th, coming up to the exit of Les Combes. But Doppelmayr to Georgi is going to change. In fact, the AM lead is going to change on this lap. It might have changed already. They were 74 thousandths apart when they crossed the line. So I would suspect now that Gianluca Giorgi's Porsche has taken the lead of the class. We'll try and catch a glimpse on this lap as you look at the overall battle. Downhill again there goes the KTM. And there is the AM leading Porsche. It's Porsche's 1-2 now, because not only has Gianluca Giorgi gone ahead, but so also has Leonardo Gorini. So Michael Doppelmayr falling down the order. The leader is being warned about track limits as well. Out of Bruxelles they come, and now down into the left-hander of Speaker's Corner. So Porsche's 1 and 2. Leonardo Gorini led the bulk of the race in AM in race 1 and got mugged right at the very end. Let's see what happens here as the cars now come out of the Campus right-hander into the Cours Paul Frère. So Weider leads Sladecka. In sector 1, the margin had come down by 1.1 seconds alone. That's in a sector. In the second sector, it was only a tenth that was gained back, but that was by Weider. So Sladecka didn't do much in the second part of the lap, but the Brabham is the quicker of the two within sector 2. But here, good on the brakes is Sladecka. He's got the gap, I would have thought, to within a second now, and they are perhaps set to start the last lap. Let's see, might get 2 more out of it in fairness as they come up towards the line, but rather depends on the timing relative to where the cars are, relative to the clock at the end of this lap. So it's 17:51 local time. Into La Source goes Kevin Wieder, and Sladecka tries then to stay with him all the way down the hill here. The Porsche battle is now very much the AM battle, because it is Giorgi ahead of Gorini, ahead of Hassan. So Henri Hassan has also got up past Michael Doppelmayr, and he's back at the races as far as the podium is concerned within the AM class here in GT2. This for the race lead. Look, Sladecka is ahead as they come up the Kemmel Straight. The KTM goes through, zaps across the front of the Brabham, and that could be a very, very timely move indeed. Philipp Sladecka leads the race then. Worked hard for that. So the car that we thought might have had a problem earlier on is up front, but the Brabham of Kevin Wieder coming back at him, and the checkered flag is going to be out this time. So the race will come to an end this time around. It was a timely move, therefore, from Sladecka. And so the KTM is up front, and Wieder there coming under attack. Look now from Nicolas Salins. Interesting that, because he fought his way past him, but now he's coming under attack as they plunge downhill. Last lap then, flag imminent as the field works lap number 17. Out of Tourn they come. Back onto the power and towards the piff-paff, but Philipp Sladecka and Stefan Rosina are going to do the double, seemingly, and that will be the first double of the season. So a very, very well-judged race, this. Philipp Sladecka up front, and it was quite a shrewd move, I think, to put him and Stefan Rosina together ultimately. It wasn't the start of the season, and Philipp came in late, and there's been a bit of driver shuffling from car to car within the True Racing team, but this looks like it's a good partnership. Now, what about second? That's still up for grabs, isn't it? As there, the Audi goes onto the tail of the Brabham, and Nicolas Salins darting around trying to distract Kevin Wieder, but he's only really got the launch into the chicane to go, into which Philipp Sladecka is about to come and to take race honours here at Spa-Francorchamps. Checkered flag at the ready then as the cars now come down towards the chicane for the last time. Turn right, turn left, and up towards the line. It is going to be a second win of the day for the KTM of Stefan Rosina and Philipp Sladecka, which wins Fanatec GT2 European Series Race 8. Second is Kevin Wieder and Anders Fjordback, despite the trip into the gravel. And third to Stinus Langin and Nicolas Salins. And then what about the AM contest, which is on its way? It's going to be Porsches 1 and 2, is it? It is, because their look is number 7. Gianluca Giorgi will bring home the car that was started by Alessandro Baccani. Second is going to go the way of Leonardo Gorini. And third, Henri Hassan, the man that leads the championship in the AM competition. Through they turn. And so a first victory of the season in AM for the Porsche of Alessandro Baccani, but a second for Gianluca Giorgi. And oh dear, Stefan Rattel has had a spin at the last corner. So coming out of the chicane, Stefan has dropped it. Luke the Audi, he will rejoin and finish in 10th place, all being well, ahead of Michael Doppelmayr and a rather delayed Klaus Angerhofer. Yes, that's the order as they come through. So a very, very good effort that by Philipp Sladecka and Stefan Rosina. 2 out of 2 takes some doing in this, but they have done it, and done it in style. Second place for Kevin Wieder and Anders Fjordback after a win at Misano, and third for Stinus Langin and for co-driver Nicolas Salins. So let's have a look at how they crossed the line. A win for Philipp Sladecka and Stefan Rosina ahead of Kevin Wieder and Anders Fjordback. Nicolas Salins and Stinus Langin third from Michael Vergers and Aurelius Rustica, with fifth Alessandro Baccani and Gianluca Giorgi, the winning AMs from Leonardo Gorini, and then Henri Hassan in third. Eighth, Bert Langin and Peter Gulinks. Ninth, Chris Rosenberger and Sedi Samini and Stefan Rattel, and Luca Piri 10th from Eli Earhart, with Michael Doppelmayr's help. Klaus Angerhofer coming home last with Hubert Tronkenpoltz. So that's the order at the end of race 2 in Fanatec GT2 European Series. Waves to the drivers from the marshals, who can go and get a little bit of downtime before they're all back on post on Thursday. In fact, some will be here on Tuesday for the bronze test. But a really good effort by the KTM, but that's going to underline the pace of that car. One or two drivers, I think, will be getting a little bit nervy about just how quick the KTMs are. They are light, they are quick, they're reliable as well. Last year they had 1 or 2 dramas, but they've come out all guns blazing this year, looking very competitive indeed. The Brabham as well, which makes a great noise. There aren't many of them, but it's good to have that car, and high-class racing for Anders Fjordbach, who won the championship last year with Mark Patterson, trying something rather different this year. And it's good that that car is going nicely as well. Damaged at Imola at the start of the year, but then winning at Misano, winning its class as well, and coming home in 2nd place in that 2nd race of the day. So the drivers here make their way into the pit lane, then to the podium. There is the KTM of Filip Sladecka and of Stefan Rosina. Stefan did the first stint, did a very good job indeed. And that car comes through to win by, in the end, 1.7 seconds from Kevin Wieder, who in turn was only half a second up on the Nicolas Salins and Stinus Longin Audi in 3rd spot. So the drivers then going to greet their co-drivers. Out will wriggle Filip Sladecka, but KTM with its very distinctive up and forward bodywork, and out gets a joy for Filip Sladecka that today has been a very, very happy driver. Stefan Rosina already there in his cap, but the 2 Slovakian drivers making a very good partnership. So the SRO officials with the Pirelli winners' hats are there. Liquid taken on board by a very hot Filip Sladecka, but yeah, down the back of his neck as well. Very hot in these cars, even for a short stint. Temperatures have been surprisingly high all weekend. The car under part ferme conditions, as there Gianluca Giorgi celebrates a 2nd win of the season, but he's first with a co-driver. And in the background, Leonardo Gorini takes off his helmet. There is Kevin Wieder. And as they did at the end of the first race, they climb aboard the top of the car. Stefan Rosina and Filip Sladecka, very happy drivers indeed here at Spa-Francorchamps. So they will now head to the podium, still taking on liquid, as the true racing drivers are congratulated by their teammates. So Filip Sladecka heads with his co-driver for the celebrations. Teams congregate underneath the podium, ready to start cheering. And more of those drivers for the podium being found by the SRO team to give them their winners' hats. Let's look at the highlights of that race that began with drama as far as the pole car was concerned. Anders Fjordbach ran out wide, dropped a couple of wheels into the gravel, but rather more significantly, he dropped place after place as well. That new gravel trap ensnaring him in terms of the momentum being lost. It wasn't long though before Fjordbach was on his toes. First of all, dispensing of Leonardo Gorini, making his way up past him, coming into the chicane. Good battle early on as well between Stinus Longin and Eli Earhart, who went through into 2nd place despite that little biff in the back, and then Earhart set off in pursuit of Stefan Rosina, but was never really able, it seemed, to get quite close enough. Only at the very end of the stint was he able to go diving through. The pit window cycled through, so those that had done well in race 1 had to serve the extra time in the pits. They were able to blast back into the race, as then Kevin Wieder on his outlap set about Aurelius Rustica and put the Brabham into the lead of the race. But that wasn't to last, because it wasn't long before Filip Sladecka was on his toes, wriggling his way up the order. First of all, he got past Nicolas Salins, then he was on the tail of and soon ahead of the Brabham. So that allowed Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rosina a 2nd victory of the day, even overcoming that 10-second success penalty time. It didn't faze them at all as the KTM wriggled through for the race lead. Kevin Wieder and Anders Fjordbach for 2nd place, and 3rd to Nicolas Salins and to Stinus Longin. And the end of race 2 of the weekend here at Spa in the Fanatec GT2 European Series. 2 out of 2 here in Belgium for Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rossina. So the podiums await. We've got one, of course, for the Pro-Ams, one for the AMs, and the drivers will be there any moment. So with Spa having been a busy circuit, you can see one or two of the witness marks there from earlier races, but right now the circuit almost breathes a sigh of relief. Calm descends, and for the first time there's no following session this weekend, so the end of track activity, just a podium or two to go, and suddenly Spa becomes a much quieter, much calmer place, and it's going to be a real hive of activity from Tuesday onwards as people start setting up and hitting the track for the 24 hours weekend with a whole host of support races and indeed virtual races. There are esports competitions here as well. So the course car ventures out to close the circuit. Track sweeping vehicles, I think, will be out as well, just to finish off that activity in readiness for the bronze test for the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa on Tuesday. And the 2 podium ceremonies, one for the Pro-Ams, one for the AMs, imminent as the drivers are taken upstairs. Make sure that you've got everybody that's needed, and then they can be called forward to complete the activity for this speed week, as it is known. So noise is off, suggests that drivers are there. So it is the Pro-Ams that come out first with their Nicolas Salens and Stinas Longjant for 3rd place. For 2nd place, Anders Fjordbach and Kevin Wieder. The Brabham drivers will make their way to the other end of the podium. A very happy Kevin Wieder, helped by Anders Fjordbach taking that 2nd place. But a 2nd win of the day for the True Racing KTM drivers. Delighted they are, Stefan Rossina and Filip Sladecka. Well done then to the winning drivers. Filip Sladecka, Stefan Rossina make it 2 out of 2 here at Spa. Sunglasses on for Stefan Rossina, as then the trophies are presented to the drivers, Spa-shaped as well. So for Stinas Longjant and Nicolas Salens, they receive their trophies there, Kevin Wieder and Anders Fjordbach. And a 2nd win of the day, 3rd of the season for Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rossina. Victorious at the Red Bull Ring and victorious twice at Spa. So hilly circuit seemed to suit the KTM, but a job well done by both of them then as they stand on the top step of the podium at the end of this 8th race of the year in the Fanatec GT2 European Series. They all congregate forward, ready for photographs. And the champagne is ready for the drivers then, so perhaps no surprises that Stefan Rossina wants to spray, and spray he does. So Kevin Wieder gets a soaking from Anders Fjordbach, and 2 very, very happy KTM teammates there. Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rossina. That's a very soggy podium right now. On wet settings, the drivers make their way back to the teams, and the last podium of the weekend is ready to go for the AMs, where the 3rd placed driver is going to be Henri Hassan, who has been, there he is, ready to go. Henri, regular winner in the category this year, 4 times a winner. He's even had an overall win, in fact, at Imola. But Henri Hassan will be brought forward in a moment. 2nd will go the way of Leonardo Gorini, the Porsche driver, and for the top step it is Gianluca Giorgi and Alessandro Baccani. First time that they have raced together this weekend, and it is a result that nets a victory for the 2 Italian drivers. Well done then to Alessandro Baccani, to Gianluca Giorgi, as the Pirelli trophies are about to be brought forward. There is Henri Hassad, who is eager to get on with the champagne. In fact, he's gone a bit keen there. The cork has popped, so Henri receives his trophy. Then for second place, Leonardo Gorini at the far end of the podium in the LP Racing Porsche, as against the LP Racing Audi of Henri Hassad, who's already away with the champagne. Decorum has gone out of the window here, but for EBI Motors, two saturated drivers on the top, they haven't even got the trophies yet. They will fight back in a moment. Gianluca Giorgi and Alessandro Baccani get another soaking, but they get their trophies, and they are very definitely race winners in the AM class, the Fanatec GT2 European Series here at Spa. So it has been a brace of good races, and as the message about GT2 gets through, more and more cars hopefully will be on track, and we look forward to seeing how the rest of the season pans out. That's it from Spa. Well done to Filip Śledecka and Stefan Rossina for winning both races outright, and we'll see you next time as the Fanatec GT2 European Series continues. From David Addison at Spa, goodbye.